You want to write a terrifying antagonist, but right now your villain is coming across more Jar Jar Binks than Hannibal Lecter. If you want your readers glued to the page, biting their nails and maybe even double checking the locks at night, you need a villain with real menace. And that's exactly what we're going to fix today. I've spent the last decade crafting complex characters, drawing inspiration from my time as a real-life police detective. In this video, we'll dive into why your villains aren't scary and how to fix them. So whether you're an aspiring author or a lover of well-written antagonists, you will walk away with valuable insights on how to make your villains unforgettable. Stay tuned to the end, where I will give you a behind-the-scenes look into my own creation of a serial killer which launched my crime thriller series into the New York Times bestseller list. When writing your villain, it's important to remember that this isn't about cheap scares. You need to write the type of character that readers will be thinking about long after they've closed the book. When I become jumpy while writing my antagonists, I know I'm on the right track. Bonus points if you find yourself checking under the bed or in the back seat of the car late at night. Firstly, let's break down the Joker as a compelling antagonist. Now, I know when we say the Joker, most people will agree that Heath Ledger gave an exceptional portrayal of the character. Let me know in the comments if you agree. But there's something very unsettling about Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker that we can learn so much from. He's terrifying because we understand why. His character is layered with trauma, neglect, and systemic failure. Arthur grew up in a home filled with abuse. He was beaten, neglected, and traumatized. When I was in the police, I saw people who had the most unimaginable childhoods, the sort of vulnerable people who should have been cared for but slipped through the cracks. And Arthur isn't the only one, which is what makes him feel so disturbingly real. Because putting the paint and theatrics aside, sometimes people just break. Weaving conditions into your writing. Arthur suffers from a condition which makes him burst into laughter at the worst possible times, like when he's feeling immense stress, pain, or shame. This juxtapose of laughter and pain makes him even more memorable. Giving your character a physical trait tied to their inner world can be incredibly powerful. What physical quirk would you give your character that represents their inner scars? In my thriller, Silent Victim, my character Emma discovers her husband wants to sell their family home, but she's holding back a secret. She's buried a body in their back garden. And when she goes to move it, she discovers an empty grave. So Emma starts off as an antagonist and works out to be a protagonist in this book. Her suffering really bubbles to the surface in the form of an eating condition. She's a memorable character because she goes from being an antagonist to a protagonist and gains sympathy from the reader. So research conditions for your characters, but please do them justice. Look up real-life stories of how people cope from day to day with it. Handle it sensitively and with respect. Think visually. How does your character move? What's their physical presence like in a room? Think small details like a limp, a nervous tic, or a defiant stance. These can make all the difference with your characters. In my standalone thriller Witness, my character whistled the tune Alleluia as he stalked. So years later, when my protagonist heard the tune, it chilled her to the core. And that's such a simple and innocent thing like a song can make such a difference to your story and give it real depth, because most of the time your readers will have heard that song before. Also, giving your character understandable motivations really helps. For the Joker, his violence can be a result of his personality disorder, but it also becomes the only way that he feels seen, and this is something he said himself. Often the break isn't because of just one event, but a whole series of events that makes their breaking points more believable, like the straw that broke the camel's back. We might not agree with what they've done, but at least we understand how they got there, and that is what makes them terrifyingly human. Arthur Fleck shows us that villains don't have to be monsters from the start. They can be broken humans shaped by trauma, neglect, and a world that just looks away. As writers, we can learn that the scariest characters are the ones whose pain we can almost understand. The ones where, for a moment, we catch ourselves thinking, if life had dealt me those cards, could I have ended up that way too? Now let's break down Mr. Reed from Heretic, played by Hugh Grant. If you haven't seen this movie yet, don't worry, I won't give away any spoilers, but I highly recommend it. It's absolutely brilliant, and he plays the part so well. So why is Hugh Grant's Mr. Reed one of horror's smartest villains? Well, imagine this. You're caught up in a snowstorm. A stranger opens the door, and with a soft British accent, he offers you warmth, witty conversation, and even a slice of freshly baked blueberry pie. I mean, who would say no to that? Well, certainly not Hugh Grant. But this is exactly the trap at the heart of Heretic. The genius of this setup is that it really leans into Hugh Grant's own screen history. For decades, we have seen him as the charming lead in romantic comedies, bumbling, polite, slightly grumpy, but always endearing. That reputation is baked into how we see him as an audience and respond to him. We want to trust him, and that's why Mr. Reed is so frightening. And this is something you need to build into your writing if this is the type of antagonist you want to talk about. He's nice, he's normal, he's charming, and this is exactly what you really need to lean into. So let's start with his trademark smile, just enough to offer reassurance, his homely clothes, his insistence that everything is okay, even though it clearly isn't. Villains don't always need dark cloaks or scars to intimidate. Sometimes they can wear cardigans. The most unsettling antagonist is one who uses his kindness, or at least the illusion of it, as their weapon. On paper, Mr. Reed is a harmless theology buff who lives in the hilltop with his wife who bakes blueberry pies. He's happy to welcome the two young Mormon missionaries into his home to discuss their religion. But as the night unfolds, his polite questions dig a little deeper and his words become sharper. And that's when the girls realize that his happy home is an illusion and they are far from safe. Not just that, but Mr. Reed is prepared. He's had a plan in mind for these girls all along, and one in which they may not come out of alive. This shift happens gradually. One uncomfortable comment about religion here, one invasive question there. Villains who drip feed their menace keep the tension simmering and force the reader to live in that same unease. And I felt that because as young people we're brought up to be polite to our elders, and you're in this situation and it's hard to go against the grain. So I could even feel that when I was watching this movie. And so what's clever about the antagonist in Heretic is that it solves a classic horror problem. Normally, audiences roll their eyes when a character blindly walks into obvious danger. Here, the excuse is airtight. Of course, the missionaries accept Reed's hospitality because it would be rude not to, and they're very keen to discuss their faith. He's so courteous, so British, so seemingly generous that the danger doesn't arrive with a bang. It slowly seeps in, and by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. In the end, Heretic works because Mr. Reed weaponizes everything we like about him. He isn't frightening in spite of those qualities. He's frightening because of them. And when you're building villains, don't automatically reach for the darkness. Sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones who make you feel safe right before they close the door. He is a master manipulator who plays a psychological game with everyone around him, never showing his true intentions. And the best thing about this character for me was his unpredictability. I just couldn't figure him out. While watching the movie, I worked out various endings, and they were all wrong. So what makes him truly terrifying? Well, he has this strategic mindset. He doesn't do it out of anger or a burst of emotion. He acts with purpose. His rationality makes his cruelty even scarier. because he's not quick to violence. Instead, he orchestrates events and lets others do the dirty work, all the while staying out of sight and just watching. Duality and hidden depths are something to be really conscious of when you're writing a character like this. One of the most terrifying things about Mr. Reed is the duality of his character. Characters like these are great for keeping readers turning the pages as they try to figure out what's going on, like I was. In my thriller, The Bone House, the killer was so respectable. But if you're writing a thriller and you don't give away their identity until the end, say to yourself, who is the very last person your reader would expect it to be? In another novel, I met the investigating officer, the murderer. Now, that really was the last person my readers expected. I won't tell you which one it was. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Self-perception is another writing tool. Is your antagonist too self-aware? In my years in the police, I met burglars who swore they were just trying to provide for their families, con men who insisted the victims were greedy and had too much money anyway, and violent offenders who blamed everybody but themselves. I even met a killer who believed that she was a victim, despite having taken her elderly mother's life and burying her in the woods. Your antagonist, or terrifying protagonist, should be the hero of their own story. Joe Goldberg from You doesn't think he's a stalker. He believes he's a romantic. Walter White from Breaking Bad doesn't see himself as a drug lord. He's a school teacher trying to raise money to pay for cancer treatment until he gets caught up in the power and control. So what about sympathies and surprises? The most memorable villains surprise us. They're not always the obvious violent brute. Sometimes they're vulnerable. Sometimes they make us feel sorry for them. In my first book, Don't Turn Around, I gave insights into my antagonist's backstory that invoked a lot of sympathy, because only then did you understand how his childhood had shaped him. I write from the antagonist's point of view in a lot of my books, and sometimes, it can feel icky to step into their shoes, but that feeling shows that you're on the right track. So really let them get under your skin if that's your genre. Just keep the story moving. Don't bog your readers down with endless backstory. Less is more. Nobody wants 10 pages about your villain's childhood guinea pig, unless, of course, maybe they operated on them secretly to show what sort of a person they were. Readers want tension, conflict, and action. In The Dark Knight, the Joker tells multiple different versions of how he got his scars. We never know the truth, but the mystery makes him more terrifying. So what can you learn from Lillian in Truth and Lies? Well, when I was coming up with the idea for my crime thriller, Truth and Lies, I thought to myself, what's the worst possible thing that I can do to my main character, Detective Inspector Amy Winter, who was following in her father's footsteps? Then I dropped her into a respectable family living in an upmarket area like Notting Hill in London. Nothing wrong with that. The book starts with a funeral. She is burying her father, devastated by his sudden loss. Then she receives a letter from prison. It's from a woman called Lillian Grimes, one half of a notorious serial killer couple, the worst Britain has ever known. Jack and Lillian Grimes are her biological parents. But I don't stop there. Lillian manipulates Amy throughout, telling her that she will reveal where her victims' bodies are buried if Amy visits her in prison. Amy has no choice. It's this kind of cat and mouse game playing that readers truly love, and Lillian is a character you will love to hate. But as her backstory opens up, you begin to wonder if she is a victim of her husband's control, or if she is the monster behind it all. It makes for compelling reading and explores the nurture versus nature aspect as Amy wonders if she is designed to turn rotten due to the blood running through her veins, and dark blood indeed. Your antagonist should really challenge your protagonist in as many ways as possible, and that is what keeps readers turning the pages and gives you enough juicy content so it can carry on from book to book to book. Because when I was writing this series, I knew it would span over several books, and I thought I need a really meaty storyline. So readers wouldn't just come back for the story, but they'd come back for the overreaching plot. And what is juicier than family? And here's another important writing tool: how other people see your antagonist. If you want to build up a terrifying antagonist, don't just show us what they do, show us how other people react to them. Villanelle in Killing Eve becomes 10 times scarier because of how everyone else talks about her. Use the supporting cast, their whispers, their fears, even their admiration. All of it builds a picture in the reader's mind before your villain even steps into the room. This works really well with protagonists too, and it's a tool that I've put to good use in Truth and Lies. So by the time we meet the characters, we've already built up a picture of them. Make them believable before you twist them. Show their mask and wear it cracked. And remember, they are a hero of their own story. Give them power and presence and let other people build them up through fear and respect. And keep the story moving, no info dumps. Remember, explore the many faces of evil. If you found this useful, please hit subscribe, as my little channel is just starting and I really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments which antagonist that you find the most terrifying. I need a little bit of extra help from someone who is still writing every day of the week. Check out my links, as there is a very special offer running for my 6-step writing blueprint today.